Today, we basically wanted to talk about the closing costs when you are purchasing a home.
Right, because this is the number people freak out about and say, oh, well, there's the down payment plus the closing costs. So we're going to kind of break it down. In most states, typically it's going to be between 2 and 5%. We're going to talk about our averages here in Greenville. But just basically, this, you can actually, when you're talking to your lender, the number one thing before we even get into all of this and kind of maybes, I would say talk to your lender that you're using and have them give you a pre-approval and then have them tell you a breakdown. If I'm buying a $300,000 house, how much are my closing costs going to be on your end? And of course, there are some variables in there, but generally speaking, if you can walk in knowing ahead of time, that's the best.
Exactly. Now, what are the closing costs is? No, the in general term is whatever the lender or that financing institution charge you to borrow you that money is really a closing cost.
Right,
no?
and this can be surprisingly variable. So there's a couple of variable numbers in here. So number one is going to be, let's talk about the closing cost itself. Number one is the loan origination fee, which is hard for me to say. And this is how much the lender is charging to process the loan. Sometimes they will have more than one fee that they break this down with. So really ask all of the lender fees possible so you know ahead of time if you even want to work with this lender. Do they give you one big number or do they break it down into a lot of smaller numbers? So you should know.
Exactly. Before we go to the second one, we want to do introduction.
Absolutely. Let's hit it. Hi, it's Alma Victoria. Welcome to our channel and podcast.
And if this is your first time in our podcast and YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe and get notified.
Also, you call text all the time, 252-327-3357. We love talking to you. Don't be shy. Also, grab our buyer's guide and seller's guide in the description below.
Now, the second thing is appraisal fee, basically paid to the third company by your first lender or your bank that you're working with to come and confirm the fair market value for the house that you are purchasing.
Right, so this it's a variable number as well, depending on how fast we need it done. So the faster we need it done, the more expensive the appraisal fee is going to be. If we do have a little bit of time for it, it will be less. So it's probably going to be between $500 to, I've seen it as high as $1,200 for like super fast, you need it in 2 days kind of situation. But typically I see 5 to 7.
Exactly.
In the Maya market in Greenville.
The next basically is title insurance that basically protects the lender and buyer from future property ownership's claim. That in the state of North Carolina, actually this is done by closing attorney, that he or she goes through all of these things and make sure the title is clean.
Absolutely. So the next thing we're going to talk about is escrow fees. These are things that you're paying at closing that are actually towards the house. Like your home insurance is typically part of this, and your property taxes. So property taxes can also variable if the city changes how much the taxes are. But home inspection, you have a little control over. So I would start calling the home companies that do home insurance and then start trying to get numbers, because you know what, maybe State Farm isn't the best deal this month, maybe it's Progressive, and maybe next month it is State Farm again. So I would call them all around and get the best numbers.
Exactly. And I just want to add to escrow fees a little bit here. It depends on your lender. Some lenders, they collect 3 months. We saw also in some of our home buyers, the lender actually collected up to 12 months, means whole year for the new construction. Therefore, this is what you need to talk to your lender about the escrow fee. The next one that I wanted to mention is attorney's fees, which in the
state of North Carolina, it is required that we go to an attorney. The attorney is going to be present during the closing.
Yeah.
And the attorney's fees are not going to be. Attorneys are not like in New York, right? New York has a very different attorney system. Attorneys are actually part of the real estate transaction from the beginning, and there's a lot of arguments back and forth. Here, the attorneys in North Carolina are not that intense, so it's not as expensive as New York for attorney fees. What they do is they run the title insurance, they make sure everything is okay on their end, and they are kind of certifying the closing. So it is at the closing table that we meet the attorneys.
Exactly, and they do the deed preparation and submit it to the county for everything for the registrar office, and that's what they collect a fee. The next one that my wife somehow mentioned it with mistake was the home inspection.
Yes, but that was a mistake. I meant to say insurance.
That should occur after your offers really have been accepted by the seller, and we definitely, your real estate agent professionals is going to connect with you, recommend, or you pick somebody that you wanted to go with and you do the property inspection.
Now, the reason this can be maybe part of the closing costs is there are some places to where you can get the inspection and you pay for it at closing. Most of the time around here, we are paying for the inspection right away, so it is not part of the closing cost. It is a part of the cost in between. Also, the appraisal fee is typically not always paid at closing in North Carolina. That is also a fee that we can be paying during. So it can be both. So they can be at the closing table or they can be paid before we get to the closing table.
Yes. And how to calculate basically your expected closing costs. Therefore, my wife in the beginning of this podcast and video mentioned that it depends on the company, which state you are, is something between 2 to 5% of your loan amount is. For example, in average, if you wanted to go the middle ground, we are talking about something around 3%. No?
Right. And it might be less, at least in our area around here. We were calculating it's probably more like 2.5, but we're going to say 3 to be on the safe side. Because again, we're not lenders. So we can just see what we see on the back end. So this means if I have you can do the math for us. If I have a $300,000 home and I need to think about having 3% for closing, how much would that be?
It's going to be $9,000.
$9,000. And if it is 2.5%, like we kind of more think it is, what would it be?
$7,500.
Right. So these are just real number examples of what we are seeing. Now, let's talk about strategies.
A strategy. Okay. What are the strategy is?
Okay. So let's just hypothetically say you love a home. Now, if you're going to new construction, maybe this new construction has a deal where they're going to be paying your closing costs, which is amazing. Maybe you don't going to new construction and we're going to a pre-owned home. We can sometimes, depending on the house, depending on the situation, of course, maybe we can negotiate with the sellers before we put the offer in on closing costs. So if you know a number ahead of time of how much we should be looking for, maybe we can ask for these. And also, I would highly recommend you do not go with the first person there. When you're talking to lenders, I would have them run a soft pull on your credit. Do you want to explain a little bit more what I'm going to say?
Well, you might end up not working with that lender. No, depends
right.
on the fees that we said in the video, and you wanted to basically have comparison. At least work with the two lenders, compare these numbers, and see how it's going to benefit you. What you get, like a pros and cons.
Right.
And this gives you in a right mind situation that what exactly you need to do for picking the right lenders for your home buying journey.
Right. Now, this is just an initial estimate, so there might be additional fees. We talked about property taxes. Property taxes can change. Home insurance is a little bit of a variation as well. But also, maybe you're buying in an HOA zone, so we have to think about those HOA fees. And maybe there's a one-time initiation fee with this HOA to get you in there as a member, and then there's the yearly fee after that. So there can be extra fees. So I don't want us to think, oh, that's all you said. So there can be more. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, as my wife said, like, for example, if you buy a condo or townhouse that has a HOA like over $150 per month, 100 on 200, 300, depends on where in the United States or Canada you're living. Definitely this is gonna run by your lender, and it's gonna make your power to purchase lower than what you expect to have.
So at the end, when you decide your lender, they should give you this thing called a closing disclosure form. It should outline all the fees that you're responsible for before the closing. You should also then get it 3 days before closing, and then the day of closing, we've seen it again. This will tell you what your exact fees are. They can switch a little bit over time because, again, there are some variations that can happen. But generally speaking, they're generally almost pretty spot on from the beginning to end once we've picked the property. So I would definitely say get an initial closing disclosure to see if what you can afford this home.
Exactly. And in the beginning, when you're working with one or two or three lenders, make sure that you get the loan estimate, because they are obliged to give you in 3 business day loan estimate. That's going to help you to have a better understanding.
Okay, we are so excited, and we can't see you. Don't go to alanvictoria.com, and we'll see you in the next video.
Exactly.